On one side, we've got a locker room full of guys who've bled for this team and might be walking out the door. On the other, there's a chance to reshape this roster in a way that could completely redefine the next chapter of this era. And here's the thing, these two conversations, they're not separate, they're connected. Who we bring back and who we decide to chase. That's going to tell us everything about what this front office really thinks about this roster. We're staring at over 20 unrestricted free agents, starters, leaders, guys who've been part of big moments. And at the same time, there are very specific names out there that could step in and change the identity of this team overnight. Some of these decisions are going to hurt, some might surprise us, and a couple could completely shift the balance of the AFC. So today we're breaking it all down. Who's most likely to return, who might have already played their last snap in a Bills uniform, and the 6 names out there that could seriously shake things up. But before we dive in, if you're a real Bills fan, hit that like button for me. This channel is brand new. We're building something special here at Bills Nation Update, and we're pushing toward our first 2,000 subscribers. If you live and breathe this team like I do, subscribe, and let's grow this thing together. Let's talk about who might still be wearing blue and red in 2026. The Buffalo Bills have 21 unrestricted free agents. 21. That's not minor turnover, that's a potential roster reset. And this isn't just depth guys. We're talking about starting center Connor McGovern, starting left guard David Edwards, defensive lineman Daquan Jones and AJ Epinesa, Matt Milano, Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Cam Lewis. That's leadership. That's trenches. That's secondary identity. And when the new league year kicks off at 4 p.m. on March 11, every single one of those guys can sign wherever they want. Now, one Bills beat writer predicts the team is most likely to re-sign Connor McGovern, Mitchell Trubisky, Reggie Gilliam, Shaq Thompson, Tre'Davious White, and Mitch Wishnowsky, and let the rest test free agency. Let's unpack that. Bringing back McGovern makes sense. Stability at center matters, especially if you're breaking in younger pieces elsewhere on the offensive line. Even though Cedric Van Pran Granger is waiting in the wings, there's something to be said for continuity in the middle, especially protecting Josh Allen. Mitchell Trubisky? That's about comfort and system familiarity. He knows the locker room. He knows the offense. If you're not investing big in a backup quarterback, that's the safe play. Reggie Gilliam is one of those glue guys. Fullback isn't flashy, but this team's run identity depends on physicality. Letting him walk would quietly hurt more than people realize. Shaq Thompson is interesting. Veteran linebacker depth in a transition year for the defense under Jim Leonhard? That feels strategic, especially if Matt Milano's situation remains uncertain. Milano has meant everything to this defense, but injuries and cap realities make this complicated. Tre'Davious White potentially coming back? That's emotional. That's culture. That's belief in a guy who's battled through adversity. It might not be prime all-pro Trey anymore, but the leadership still carries weight. And Mitch Wishnowsky at punter? Special team stability is underrated. You don't want chaos in the hidden yardage game. Now here's where it gets heavy. That means potentially letting David Edwards walk, letting Daquan Jones walk, letting AJ Epinesa test the market, letting Jordan Poyer walk, letting Cam Lewis go, letting Damar Hamlin, Sam Franklin, Darnell Savage, Matt Prater, Larry Ogunjobi, Jordan Phillips, Joey Bosa, Brandon Cooks, Gabe Davis, all test free agency. That's a lot of snaps, a lot of production, a lot of history. And speaking of Joey Bosa, he didn't do enough this season. That production on the edge has to be replaced if he walks. You can't ignore that. There's also the Taylor Rapp question. He's been oft injured. Do you bring him back for another year? Or do you finally move on and reset the safety room completely? And here's another layer. People aren't talking about enough. This free agent class league-wide has strength in some positions and is thin in others. If safety and linebacker markets are deep, that changes how aggressive you are. If receiver is a down off-season talent-wise, that affects how you allocate money. Plus, there are potential salary cap casualties around the league. Veterans who could get cut to save money. That market always reshapes everything in a hurry. So, what does this tell me as a fan? It tells me this front office is at a crossroads. They can try to hold on to familiarity and continuity, or they can lean into a calculated reset. And honestly, you can't bring everybody back. You just can't. Not financially, not philosophically. But here's the twist. If you're letting some of these names walk, especially in the secondary at linebacker, along the defensive line, and possibly at guard, then you better have a plan. Because there are very specific players out there who could step in and not just replace production, but upgrade it. And that brings us to the part that's really going to spark debate in this fan base. The 6 pending free agents the Bills absolutely must consider pursuing. And one name in particular that could completely change the identity of this defense. Now this is where things get real interesting. Because if the Bills are going to let a chunk of those 21 free agents walk, especially in the secondary at linebacker, on the edge, and potentially along the interior offensive line, then free agency is not optional. It's necessary. This roster has holes. Some need patching. Some need a full overhaul. And as the new league year gets closer, it's clear the 2026 Bills are not going to look like the 2025 Bills. There might not be splashy, headline-grabbing mega deals. But this free agent pool, it's deep. And it's filled with useful, impactful players who fit specific needs. Let's start at safety. Brian Cook. Last year we rotated through an amalgamation of safeties. Different combinations, different results. We saw a lot of Jordan Poyer paired with Cole Bishop. And listen, Poyer fought. He always does. But at times, it felt like he was patching a sinking ship. Brian Cook would not be a patch. He'd be ballast. Coming off a career year with the Chiefs, 85 tackles and 6 passes defensed, that's production. That's consistency. He's an ideal free safety to pair with Bishop's physical style. Bishop brings the hammer. Cook brings range and reliability on the back end. And in Jim Leonhard's defense, a dynamic duo at safety could turn this unit into one of the most feared in the league. Here's the catch. He's a blockbuster. Close to $15 million per season on the open market. That's serious money. But if safety is truly a priority, and this is a down year for receivers in free agency, maybe that's where you allocate resources. If you're serious about fixing the back end once and for all, Cook might be the move. Now linebacker, Terrell Barnard is expected to hold down the middle. Dorian Williams looks like an early favorite outside, but you need at least one more legitimate outside linebacker. Enter Alex Anzalone. 31 years old, veteran presence, productive, one of the better free linebackers available, and projected around $7.3 million. That's not crippling money. In a transitional year defensively, having a smart, experienced player who can stabilize the second level while younger guys develop, that's valuable, especially in Leonhard's system, where discipline and positioning matter. Now let's talk wide receiver, because this one's tricky. The market is thin at the top. There's no obvious prime elite WR1 just sitting there waiting to sign. That player simply isn't in the 2026 free agent class. But there are veterans. DeAndre Hopkins has been speculated as a fit for Buffalo for 6 seasons now. 6. In his prime, he would have cost top dollar. Now, he's more medium bucks. This season, Josh Allen's most trusted downfield target was Brandon Cooks. Hopkins can do everything Cooks did, and with a full offseason building chemistry with Josh, that's the type of calculated veteran addition that elevates the offense without destroying the cap. He's not prime Hopkins, but he's still savvy, still strong at the catch point, still understands how to find space. And then there's Tyler Lockett. Only 291 yards this season between the Titans and Raiders. So no, he's not the WR1 fans dream about. But again, that guy isn't available. What Lockett gives you is consistency, elite hands, high football IQ, professionalism, and he's expected to make under $2 million this offseason. Under $2 million. That's the kind of low-risk move contenders make. He can contribute, mentor rookies from the 2026 draft class, and give Allen another reliable option without tying up money long-term. Now, edge rusher. Yes, we've had our fill of aging edge rushers. The philosophy and the financial commitment to that approach has been costly. So why even consider Hassan Reddick? Because of the price. He's 2 seasons removed from 4 straight years of 11 or more sacks. The production dipped, but the ability is still there. And in a market where teams are paying big for pass rushers like Hendrickson, Owe, and Mack, getting to Reddick early could mean value. Joey Bosa didn't do enough this season. That production has to be replaced if he walks. Reddick can give you pass rush juice, stay affordable, and fit the new defensive structure. Now, offensive line. If Connor McGovern stays but David Edwards leaves, you've got a vacancy at left guard. And if you want to maintain the strength of the run game without overspending, Evan Neal, former New York Giants guard, can play both sides of the line, finishing his rookie deal, projected around $4.4 million per season. He's a natural fit in Buffalo's established run system, and joining a contender instead of rebuilding, that's appealing for him. So when you zoom out, here's what I see. The Bills are staring at a roster shift. Veterans possibly walking, depth being tested, identity being questioned. But they also have a chance to retool intelligently. Brian Cook upgrades safety. Alex Anzalone stabilizes linebacker. DeAndre Hopkins or Tyler Lockett give Josh Allen experienced targets in a weak receiver market. Hassan Reddick replaces lost edge production without breaking the bank. Evan Neal keeps the offensive line intact if Edwards leaves. No splashy overreaction, just calculated moves. And when you connect that back to who we might lose internally, it paints a very clear picture. This front office isn't just deciding who stays, they're deciding what version of the Buffalo Bills we're about to become. Now let's step back and look at what both of these stories together really tell us about this team, and whether we should feel confident or concerned. When you put these two conversations side by side, who might be leaving and who we might be chasing, it tells you something bigger than just transactions. It tells you this franchise knows it's at a pivot point. If Connor McGovern stays but David Edwards walks, that's controlled continuity. If Tre'Davious White comes back but Jordan Poyer doesn't, that's emotional loyalty mixed with evolution. If Joey Bosa isn't retained and you pivot to someone like Hassan Reddick, that's a philosophical shift in how you're paying for pass rush. And if you let veterans like Brandon Cooks or Gabe Davis test the market, then go add a calculated piece like DeAndre Hopkins or Tyler Lockett, that's not desperation. That's intentional restructuring. This isn't a teardown, but it's not running it back either. It feels like a soft reset around Josh Allen. You keep the core heartbeat, you protect the trenches, you stabilize the middle of the defense, and then you surgically upgrade the back end and skill positions without blowing up the cap. Now the real question, is that enough? Because the AFC isn't slowing down. If Brian Cook really costs around $15 million per season, that's a statement signing. If you pass on him and try to patch safety again, fans are going to feel it immediately. If you bet on aging receivers instead of developing a true number one, you better nail the draft. If you don't adequately replace edge production after Joey Bosa's underwhelming season, you're asking a lot from the rest of that defensive front. So, what do these two stories reveal? They reveal urgency, but controlled urgency. They reveal a front office trying to thread the needle between competing now and planning smartly for the next 3 years. And as a fan, I actually feel cautiously optimistic. Because for the first time in a while, it doesn't feel like we're chasing headlines. It feels like we're identifying needs honestly. Safety needed help. Linebacker depth needed stability. The receiver market isn't elite, so you adjust expectations. The edge room needs affordable production. That's clarity. But clarity only matters if the execution is right. This offseason is going to define whether this era with Josh Allen evolves or stalls. And that's why every single decision, who stays, who walks, who gets targeted, matters more than people think. Now I want to hear from you. Do you bring back more of our own guys and bet on continuity? Or do you lean into this shift and aggressively pursue names like Brian Cook or DeAndre Hopkins? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it like real Bills fans. And if you're enjoying honest, passionate breakdowns like this, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Bills Nation Update is brand new. We're building this from the ground up, and we're pushing toward our first 2,000 subscribers. If you ride with this team through every high and every heartbreak, subscribe and be part of this community from day one. Because this offseason, it's just getting started. Go Bills!